In this video, we're going to explore the concept of finding points or distances or accurate positions within our geometry as we're drawing. So whilst we're drawing a line, for instance, as we hover over an object, you'll see I have a diamond cursor. And if I was to click now, I am either attached perpendicular, or if I move my mouse far enough, it will turn into a tangent line position relative to the object that I selected. The same is true if I move my cursor and the cursor turns to a small square, as it is here, and I click, I know for a fact it's found the end point closest to where I was clicking. And I'll do that again here and again here. Now that's great, but sometimes whilst you're in the middle of a command of inserting something, you may want something a little more specific than what I just did then. So I'm just going to right click out of here, and I'm going to show you what are called the location commands or locate position commands. And essentially what these do, and I'll click on it here. So I've clicked on the parent and the child items are underneath. You'll notice all of them have a yellow dot. And you'll also notice that if I'm in the middle of drawing a line, and I'm just going to start a line in free space, just here, for instance, the prompt is asking me for the end of the line, and it is written in black lettering. The moment I choose one of these commands, and I'll click on that, we now have blue lettering, okay, to indicate that we're now in the middle of I suppose you would call it an interrupt command. And you'll also notice the cursor has a small dot in the upper right quadrant. That is also useful in indicating to you, the user, that you are in the middle of one of these intermediary commands. So a command that can only operate whilst you're in the middle of another command. So in this case, I have chosen the end command. Okay, so it locates the end. But I don't have to move my cursor all the way to the end of this arc, for instance, to find it. I only have to be past the halfway mark of the arc, click anywhere on the arc, and it found the end point. I can do exactly the same thing with a line, and I can do exactly the same thing with a curve. So it's a very useful way, especially if there's a difficult end point to locate, there are too many items in the way. It's an excellent way to position yourself to the end of an object. Let's look further at some of these options here. Let's use the insert point and immediately come to here and choose locate on. And in this case, what we're able to do is select the object that we wish to be attaching to. So we're going to grab hold of that. And you'll notice that as I move my cursor, I have a locating point appearing on the screen, wrapping its way around that circle. If I was to click in open space, then I've positioned that point exactly where it was when I clicked. If we repeat that and I choose this line instead, it will find the intersection of this line and this circle. If I repeat the same command here, you can see that it follows the arc, and it will actually follow the arc beyond the arc as if the arc was a circle, because indeed an arc is simply a portion of a circle. And if I then select this green line, it's found a point where this line projects down onto this arc. The same would be true if I selected this line as my reference, and then this one, a point is projected down to here. In some cases, the line can cross over, as it did here, and we would choose the curve and then the line, and it's found the absolute intersection where those two meet. In the case of a point, if I was to select this line and then I snap to this point, I know that that point is the shortest distance from that point to the line. So it's, again, perpendicular to the line, making it always the shortest distance. And the same would be true if I'd pick the curve and I'd pick this point. That is the shortest distance between this curve and that point. In this video, we're going to look at the concept of using the along option. So basically locating along an object. So I'll select locate along. I'm in the middle of drawing a line, and I can type in a distance. So if I type in something like 1000, Okay, and I select OK, the prompt will then ask me to select the reference entity. Now, if I select the line, I can select the line anywhere, but if I select the line to the right of its halfway mark, it will measure from this end back 1,000. If I select the line past its halfway mark on the left, it will measure from this end, this direction, 1,000. So let's do it to the left a bit. I'll click here. This will reappear so that you can reuse it to locate another object, which I'll do next. So I can click on the arc. So now this line I know has started 1 meter along this line. And if I select this arc, I know that that's 1 meter along the arc, and so on. So that is an excellent option for measuring a distance along another object. You also have the ability to measure a percentage. So if we click there, we can say leave it at 10%, and I'll select OK. And you'll notice some objects like this curve and this curve are unable to be selected. And that's because percentages of a curve are very challenging, if not impossible, to actually work out, because there are a series of different control points that regulate a curve. But on linear entities such as a line, and I'll click on this one, I know that that distance from this endpoint to this endpoint is 10%, or 1/10 of the total length of that line. And then we've also got the ability to do fractions. So I'll click on fractions. With fractions, you get a pull-down menu. And here I'll select 1/5. Okay, so 20% of a line. I'll click OK. And if I click on the arc, again, I'm clicking past its halfway mark, and I go click. It's found a position that is 1/5 the length of that arc. And if I use it again on this one, that's 1/5 the total length of that line. So as you can see, you can be very, very accurate without committing yourself to very complicated systems. This is a very simple way to gain accuracy on your drawing. As you've realized, you have the ability to find or positions within a drawing simply by hovering into a location. So if I want to find the origin of this circle, I can just move into where I believe the circle's origin to be. It's not always that easy, however. So, for instance, this arc, I'd have to kind of guess, roughly speaking, where is that? And I have to be very slow and careful and try and find the dot, and it might be, the center might be exactly on the edge of something else. So it's never going to be that easy. The same is true sometimes for lines. The origin of a line is at its center. And yes, you can come down and you can work your way down until your cursor changes, as it does here. And now I know I've found the origin of this line. Terrific. There is no origin for a curve because a curve bends in also many different directions, so there is no actual origin. And for an object out of a library, okay, the origin is only its insertion point, which is not always that useful either. However, the origin tool here is extremely useful. So let's just have a look at how that works. I'm just going to insert points rather than lines, just because it makes illustrating easier. And I'm going to choose the origin midpoint option. And in this case, the prompt that's blue simply says locate the object. So I just click on the object and it's found the origin. If I click on this object, it's found the origin. If I click on this object, it too has found the origin. I can't click on this object because it knows there is no origin. And curiously, with an object that's out of the library, without me having to explode it into its individual elements, I can select a line and it will find the origin of each individual line within that geometry. So I don't have to decompose the object in order to find snapping points within the geometry. If I now choose the text string, it's found the lower left corner to be the origin of the text. And I'll show you why that is the case. I right-click out, double-click on the text, and you'll notice that the justification is left and vertical justification is bottom. So the point is at the left and on the bottom. If, however, I was to change that to be center for vertical justification, you can see where it is now located in the preview, and I went to the center. Now the position for the origin of this text is dead center of the text, and I'll select OK. And I might move that text and just redo the insertion of a point, single point, to the origin of this text. So that's its position. The other nice thing is that you can use the same tool to find the midpoint between two other points. So if I simply just snap to this point, you can see I've now got a trailing point that's following me directly halfway, or between my cursor position and the point that I snapped to. And if I snap to this point, that point there is directly halfway between that point and that point. If I snap to this point and I snap to this point, that point is directly and exactly halfway between here and here. In this example, I'm going to insert points rather than lines, and I'm going to use the intersection tool. Now, normally speaking, you would literally only need to hover your cursor over the intersection and you will see a cross at your cursor's location, which is exactly the same as what we're about to do. But there are some times when finding an object or getting the cross to appear, because there's so many lines in the way, it's not sure which one you're actually working on. So what you'll do is choose the intersection tool, and then you'll just come across with your diamond. And once you see the diamond, you know that you found the right location for that. But you must be picking over the top of the two objects as they intersect. Okay, it won't click. If I can see the diamond here and I click, nothing happens. Okay, I can see the diamond here, nothing happens. But if I hover and put my diamond directly over both objects, then that location is located very, very easily. In this example, we're going to look at the offset tool. Okay, so we're basically looking at offsetting from two other objects. It doesn't have to be two, but there's certainly a use case where it's very common that we would use that. So what I might do is draw a circle, and I'll just put in a circle of a diameter of 1 meter and select OK. And I'm about to position this circle somewhere, and it might be, let's say that this represents a hole or a tree, let's say a tree, and I need to locate it relative to maybe the fence line here and the curb of the road here, that maybe we're in a cul-de-sac. So I'll choose this command, and I can reference off of either one element or two. And off the first one, I might say, look, this tree sits back about 2,500 off the fence, and it sits back off the road about 3 meters. So I select OK, and I now select the fence line, following the prompt to locate the first entity to offset, or offset entity, and then the second one. And where I move my cursor is the direction of the offset. So no matter where I click, I could click here, 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 anywhere around here, it's going to place the circle's center directly here. Watch me do that. There it is. If I repeat the command, I can show you then, if I pick the two same elements, but I move my cursor to the left, you'll see this point here, which is where this line and this arc meet, will be used. And if I come down this way, it's actually found a point down here. So let's choose this one, and I'll click, and there's my circle sitting in this position. Very, very handy. Saves you using any construction geometry. It's just temporary construction geometry that's being generated, allowing you to make very easy positionings. In this example, I'm going to insert a component from the components library. So I'll just come here to this one. I'll select this component and go OK. So I've now got the component, and I wish to locate it relative to perhaps two other points on the screen. If I use the X, Y, Z option, okay, I might just choose this point as my reference. So that's my reference point. And then I can type in, either using Cartesian or cylindrical coordinates, okay, I can type in how far I want this to be to the right of this, so in the X direction. If I want it to go to the left, I'll type in a negative number, but I want it to go to the right. I'm going to go to the right by, say, 1,500. And I want to use the Y direction, and that is going to be maybe up the screen by only a meter. Okay, and I go okay. And I now know that the center of this is 1500 to the right of this point and 1 meter up from this point. In this exercise, we will use a point and try and insert a point at what is called the apparent intersection. So for instance, this vertical line of this cube and this edge line cross over according to our visual appearance. However, if I just rotate the screen around, you'll see that what we've got is a three-dimensional object, and they don't truly cross over at all. But to our eye, from this view and perspective point, they do. And if I want to find the location of that point, then again, I use position commands, and I'll choose the apparent intersection. Okay, locate an apparent intersection, and it says locate the first intersection line, which is this one here, and then it says locate the second intersection line, and it's found a point. Where is that located? Well, let's again rotate this around and we'll see where it's located. So it's located on the first entity that we chose. Okay, so we go back to that position. That's their location. Can be useful when you're operating in 3D. Not always, but it's quite a useful tool for giving you the ability to snap to areas that literally look as if they do intersect. Let's try it one more time. Okay, this time I'm going to use a line, and we're going to go from this one first. Oh, wrong command. Okay, so I'm in the middle of the line. I need to now choose the command. Then I'll choose this line as the one I'm going to snap to, and I'm going to choose this one as the intersecting point. Okay, and then I'll position that down into this corner. And let's have a look at, or in fact, let's go back over to this one. So I want this one here. So that back line and this one. So snap to that. Let's rotate this around, right click out, rotate this around. So you can see we've now got a line joining those two positions. In this video, we're going to use this last item, locate XYZ reference. I'll just insert a circle of 500 millimeters. So we're about to insert a circle, but I want to use the end points of these two kind of items in order to figure out where this is going to go. So I choose this command, and it says locate the position for the X coordinate. I'm going to say, well, I don't want it to go left and right of this point. I want it to stay in line with that point. So I click. So now I can, no matter where I move, I know I'm in line with this point. And I don't want to go either to the right or the left of this point. So I want to force it to be in this location, okay, relative to this point for the Y. And then the Z, if you were working in 3D, would be a height. You'd click on a height value. But in this case, I don't have a height, so I just click anywhere I like. And my circle has gone in line with this and in line with that, without me needing to draw anything. If we do it the other way, so we do exactly the same thing, this becomes the X. You can see it follows up here, and then this becomes the Y, and then this becomes a point in Z space. So just click, then we're in alignment with those two. I highly recommend that you go through your manual, your printable manual, and you will see more detail about every command is written and illustrated in the manual as well as this video.